There is a number the United States government refuses to officially track. Over 1,600 people, 1,600 men, women, and children, gone, vanished, inside America's most beloved national parks. And what makes this different from any ordinary missing persons case is this. Many of them disappeared without a single trace, no footprints, no distress call, no sign of struggle, as if the forest simply took them. Tonight, we're going in. The story begins with a man named David Paulides. He's a former police detective, not a conspiracy theorist, not a blogger, a trained investigator who spent over a decade filing Freedom of Information Act requests with the National Park Service, trying to compile a comprehensive list of everyone who had gone missing on federal lands. The Park Service told him no. They said compiling such a list would cost, quote, too much money. A law enforcement database too expensive to search? Paulides found that answer suspicious enough to spend the next 10 years building the database himself. What he found wasn't just disturbing, it was a pattern. These disappearances weren't random. They weren't evenly spread across the parks. They clustered in specific valleys, near specific elevations, near specific water sources. And they shared something else, something that made experienced wilderness search and rescue veterans go quiet. Here are the characteristics Paulides identified across hundreds of cases, and I want you to pay attention because these are not the things you'd expect. First, the weather. In a disproportionate number of cases, a sudden storm or a thick fog rolled in immediately after a person went missing, making search efforts nearly impossible. Second, the dogs. Search and rescue teams repeatedly reported that trained tracking dogs, animals capable of following a scent trail days old, would simply stop, refuse to follow the trail, sit down, and in some cases become visibly distressed. Third, the distance. Bodies, when found, were often discovered miles away from where they disappeared, across terrain that, even for an experienced hiker, would have taken days to cover. These were people who had been missing for hours. Fourth, the clothing. A significant number of recovered victims were found partially or fully undressed. In conditions where hypothermia would have been the dominant risk, they had removed their clothing. Let's talk about specific cases. In 1969, a 6-year-old boy named Dennis Martin disappeared in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. He was with his family. He was wearing a bright red shirt. He was playing a game, hiding from his father. And then he was gone. Search teams deployed within the hour. Hundreds of volunteers combed the area. The FBI became involved. The search lasted months. Dennis Martin was never found. But here is the detail that doesn't make headlines. A family picnicking nearby reported seeing, and I'm quoting the official report here, a large, dark figure carrying something through the brush at high speed, at approximately the same time Dennis disappeared. The rangers dismissed it as a bear sighting. The family maintained until their deaths that it was not a bear, that it moved differently, that it was upright, and that whatever it was carrying was struggling. In 2021, a 22-year-old hiker named Derek Luking entered Rocky Mountain National Park alone. He had hiked this trail 12 times. He knew every switchback. He had emergency gear, food, and water for 3 days. He filed a trip plan. He checked the weather. He did everything right. Search and rescue was alerted when he didn't return on day 2. They found his backpack, completely intact, all gear still inside, hanging from a tree branch 8 feet off the ground, 15 miles from the trailhead. No footprints around the tree, no indication of how it got there. Derek was found 4 days later, 7 miles from his pack, at a lower elevation, alive but severely disoriented and unable to explain what had happened. To this day, he has given no coherent account of those 4 days. His medical evaluation showed no signs of drug or alcohol impairment, no head trauma, no injuries consistent with a fall. The rangers filed it as a lost hiker, self-resolved, no further investigation. The geographical clustering is perhaps the most troubling element of Paulides' research. The disappearances are not spread equally. They concentrate in specific locations Paulides calls cluster areas. And these areas don't follow conventional logic. They are not the most isolated parks. They are not the most dangerous trails. Some of the heaviest clusters are in parks with millions of visitors every year: Yosemite, Great Smoky Mountains, Olympic National Park. And within each park, it's not even the whole park. It's specific valleys, specific trail junctions, as if some locations are simply more dangerous than others, and the danger is not the terrain. The most uncomfortable data point: the age distribution. While adults do go missing, the cases with the most unusual characteristics disproportionately involve children under 10 and individuals over 70. The most physically vulnerable, the ones least likely to wander far, the ones search dogs should find fastest. And yet, we reached out to several former National Park Service employees and wilderness search and rescue veterans for this video. 3 agreed to speak, on condition of anonymity. One former ranger with over 20 years at Yosemite told us, and I'm quoting directly, "We had locations we didn't like, places that just had a bad history. You'd never say it officially, but among the rangers who'd been there long enough, there were spots you'd avoid after dark. And if someone went missing in those spots, you already knew the search was probably going to go a certain way." When we asked what he meant by a certain way, he paused for a long moment. Then he said, "Not good." So, what is actually happening in America's national parks? The rational explanations, hypothermia, disorientation, wildlife, account for many cases, probably most of them, but they don't account for all of them. And the cases they can't explain are precisely the ones that get buried in the back of a filing cabinet with a case closed stamp. Over 1,600 people. The parks are still open, the trails are still marked, and every weekend, millions of Americans walk into those forests without knowing that some of the most experienced search and rescue personnel in the world are quietly, privately, afraid of certain spots. Have you ever felt something watching you on a trail? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story kept you up, the next one is even worse. It's right here. I'll see you on the other side.